been writing a little bit today. My shoulder is killing me. All right, so we're looking at triangle congruence, and we're talking, there's like 5 different ways that we can look at triangle congruence, but we're going to start with just these 2, side, 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 and side, angle, side. That's what those letters stand for, and so that's what we're going to be looking at today, and we're going to look at proofs, proving triangles congruent. So we'll start with the SSS, which is side, side, side. And side, side, side says that if 3 sides of one triangle are congruent to 3 sides of another triangle, then the 2 triangles have to be congruent. Okay? Get that shoulder at a different angle, maybe. Woo. All right, so if I draw 2 triangles, just to give you a little look at what this means. If I have a side AB congruent to DE and sides BC congruent to EF and side AC congruent to DF, then triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So that's all of it put together with an example. So a couple of things they want us to recall for the proofs, and there's a few other things, but these are some things that you might not recollect or pull to the front of your memory from seasons past. One would be definition of midpoint. Usually on proofs I'll abbreviate, so there's that abbreviation there for definition of midpoint. And what does midpoint tell us about the line? It splits it into 2 congruent parts, right? Good. And then we have the reflexive property. And the reflexive property says that if you have one side that's shared within the triangles, then that side's congruent to itself, right?
Yes.
That's what the reflexive property says. And then 3 is the transitive property. And every once in a while it sneaks up when we're not looking. It's not very common. But it says if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Because if two things are equal to the same thing, then they're also equal to each other. So in proofs, they're going to give you some given information and tell you what they want you to prove. And as we get good at proofs and we work through proofs, they aren't going to give you any information but the given and the proof. But they start out kind of slow, and they show you what they want as far as statements go. We're gonna do one today without statements or reasons, but it's a very small, just introductory one. This one's gonna have 5 statements, which means it's gonna have 5 reasons. And like I said, they're giving us the statements, so we're going to go ahead and write those. Today is quite a bit of hand cramp. And as you're writing them, I want you to pay a close attention to those first 3 statements there and what you recognize about them, where you've seen them before. All right, so looking at this first one, it says PQ congruent to ST. So PQ congruent to ST. Where have you seen PQ as congruent to ST before? Where? Not in the example, in the given. And if it's given, that's our reason. That we know that this is true because they gave it to us. So it is given. Everybody with us so far? All right. Then it says QR is congruent to TR. So I'm going to put 2 marks on that one because it's the second one. And QR is congruent to TR. How do I know that?
It's given.
It's also given. And the next thing they tell me is that R is the midpoint of PS. Up here, R is the midpoint. How do I know that information? It is also given. So let me say this. Sometimes they'll put all the given in one statement. They'll say this is this and this are all given. Okay? But on these very beginner ones, they like for you to separate it all out so that they see that you know that each piece is given. Yes? So then we're looking at the next one. It says PR is congruent to SR. So I'm going to put 3 lines up here on PR and SR. How do I know that PR and SR are congruent? Because R is the midpoint, so it's by definition of midpoint. Still with me?
Yes.
Okay. So lastly, now I want you to look at the picture. I've got side congruent to a side, side congruent to a side, side congruent to a side. 3 sides congruent to 3 sides. 3 sides of one triangle congruent to 3 sides of another triangle. What's your question?
Oh, I was trying to do the reason.
Oh, no, not there yet. So if I have 3 sides of one triangle congruent to 3 sides of the other triangle, then triangle PQR is congruent to triangle STR by what?
SSS.
Side, side, side. Say it enough, you'll remember it. Okay? You guys with me? If you guys practice it, because there's going to be 5 different ones of these, 5 different letter combinations that we look at. Okay? Yes? Not too bad. You guys are on a roll already. My 3rd period was a hot mess today. I couldn't do anything right. I used more whiteout in that period. I almost used a whole thing of whiteout. I put a whole problem in the wrong place. It was bad. They were like, "Are you recording our class?" No, not today. This is where it all began. I wrote the wrong problem down. Then when I wrote the right problem, I couldn't draw the picture. It was bad. So bad. All right, here we go. Example 2. My hand's hurting today. Given. AC congruent to AD and CB congruent to DB. And we're going to prove triangle ABC congruent to triangle ABD. Oh, that just smeared. Oh well. Yep, this is where it becomes an issue. Oh, I did it. Yay. It's not very good, but I did it nonetheless. A, B, C, D. This is one of those. It doesn't matter how it's written. It's about what's labeled and known, right? All right, they're going to tell us that this one's going to have 4 statements, which means it's going to have 4 reasons. We're going to see if we can't come up with these statements. It's a pretty short one. Okay, so looking at the first 2 things, what do you think the first 2 statements are going to be about? What are you listing? What things are you going to put there? The given. There's 2 things given. I'm going to write the 2 things given. Okay? AC congruent to AD, and you said that was given. I'm going to go ahead and mark that on my picture. And the other one was CB congruent to DB, and you said that was given. I'm going to 2 marks on those. And then the last line, if you look back at the last proof that you wrote, the last line talked about what?
The triangle.
The triangles. It gave you the prove statement. So I'm going to talk about triangle ABC congruent to triangle ABD. I don't quite know all that information yet. So I have 3 blanks I need to fill in that's not given to me. Is everybody with me? Do you have a question?
You put ABC is congruent to ABC.
Thank you. Okay, so if I have 2 sides congruent, how can I make a 3rd side to be able to do side, side, side? Any ideas?
AB is congruent to AB
How do you know that?
because they're the same.
But how do you know that?
But the name of it, it's the reflective property.
Reflexive property. AB is congruent to AB by the reflexive property. Is everybody with us?
Mm-hmm.
So that line there in the middle, I'm going to put 3 marks on. It's congruent to itself, right? So now I have all sides of one triangle congruent to 3 sides of another triangle. Therefore, my 2 triangles are congruent by side, side, side. The more you say it, the better you'll get at it. Okay? Questions? Seems pretty straightforward, yes? Okay, so let's look at